What's up, everybody? It's the Digital World Podcast, and today is the beginning of the United Nations General Assembly in New York, and I'm gonna do another video after this that's gonna follow up on this whole notion and how this is something that has been talked about since forever. And I'll show you some clips of George H.W. Bush. But anyways, here is Guterres, Antonio Guterres, and he is the UN Secretary General. And I'm gonna play this clip, and I'm gonna continue reading some of the transcripts of what he said. But folks, this is gonna be the new narrative, and you can probably expect climate lockdowns. And if you haven't questioned why this is all happening and how there are our freedoms have been curtailed, and how this may not be so much about what they say it is, but maybe it's about total control. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't take care of our planet and refrain from polluting it as much as possible. But you always have to wonder the agenda that comes behind it, because it may sound all good from a superficial standpoint, but when you go into the details, you have to start asking yourself, what is this all about? And before I start, there's this quote here, or this is something George Gammon said, and I agree with this statement. He said, wealth is not measured in dollars, euros, or yen, but in goods and services, okay? And we're seeing shortages everywhere. So if this continues and we start seeing lockdowns for climate and stuff of that sort, you got to ask yourself, what is happening? Okay? And has this been something that's been planned for a while? Something that's been in the works? Stay tuned for the next video. But here is a video of Antonio Guterres giving his speech. Let's see if it works here. Okay, here we go.
I'm here to sound the alarm. The world must wake up. We are on the edge of an abyss and moving in the wrong direction. Our world has never been more threatened or more divided. We face the greatest cascade of crises in our lifetimes. The COVID-19 pandemic has supersized the glaring inequalities. The climate crisis is pummeling the planet. Upheaval from Afghanistan to Ethiopia to Yemen and beyond.
And besides, we had a crisis before the pandemic happened, okay? And you know, what a coincidence that all of a sudden it came in and all this inequalities, quote unquote, showed up. There were inequalities that already existed. Just it was shown because the cracks in the system were beginning to become more apparent. And so what better way than to put the blame on an invisible enemy that no one can see, but they're being told it's out there. But in reality, it's the financial and economic methods that have made this glaring inequality, especially from the great financial crisis, when the government decided to bail out corporations and the taxpayer picked up the tab. That's not free market capitalism. That's not. So they're misconstruing, and that's why it's so important to know and understand everything. Because when you critically think for yourself and you find this information for yourself, you no longer just accept what is being told to you, but you're able to decipher the words that are being told to you.
Surge of mistrust and misinformation is polarizing people and paralyzing societies. Now is the time to restore trust, and now is the time to inspire hope. And I do have hope. The problems we have created are problems we can solve. Humanity has shown that we are capable of great things when we work together. And that is the raison d'etre of our United Nations.
See, on the surface, it sounds really good and really uplifting, but behind it is what's concerning. Now, here, I'm going to go ahead and continue that script. And he says human rights are under fire, science is under assault, and economic lifelines for the most vulnerable are coming too little and too late if they come at all. Solidarity is missing in action just when we need it most. Perhaps one image tells the tale of our times, a picture we have seen from parts of the world of COVID-19 vaccines in the garbage, expired and unused. On the one hand, we see the vaccines developed in record time, a victory of science and human ingenuity. On the other hand, we see that triumph undone by the tragedy of a lack of political will, selfishness, and mistrust, a surplus in some countries, empty shelves in others. And here, folks, I'm going to just keep reading and then we'll have a conversation about this. A majority of the wealthier world vaccinated, over 90% of Africans still waiting for the first dose. This is a moral indictment of the state of our world. It is an obscenity. We passed the science test, but we are getting an F in ethics. Okay, well, first of all, why are they trying to reach every single person on every single part of the continent? This is a real, like, this is a question you have to ask yourself. It's not just like, oh man, we got to help these poorer nations. Why is it? And there's a variety of reasons. Well, you want to, include all of them, but why do you want to include all of them? Right? And what happened to natural immunity, right? These are questions that you got to ask yourself. And these are things where you start questioning everything they tell you. On the surface, like I said, it sounds good, right? It's ethically and morally right to help other people. But when they're starting to force it and starting to make your way of living impossible without it, then you have to ask, why is there so much coercion? Now he goes on to say, climate scientists tell us it's not too late to keep alive the 1.5 Celsius centigrade goal of the Paris Agreement, but the window is rapidly closing. We need a 45 cut in emissions by 2030. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be 45%. Yet a recent UN report made clear that with present national climate commitments, emissions will go up by 16%. We are weeks away from COP26 UN climate conference in Glasgow, but seemingly light years away from reaching our targets, and we must get serious. We must act fast. This is happening in November. And folks, this is a prelude to what's going to happen or to be talked about in Glasgow for COP26. And I believe that sooner or later, climate lockdowns are going to take place. And it's going to be another reason to curtail freedoms and your rights. If 9/11 and the Patriot Act isn't any indication to that, well, that's why history is so important. It's important to know what has happened and why it has happened, and important to critically think on your own. Now he says the pandemic and the climate crisis have exposed profound fragilities as societies and as a planet. Yeah, instead of humility in the face of these epic challenges, we see hubris. Instead of the path of solidarity, we're on a dead end to destruction. And now, it's important to note that the United Nations and World Economic Forum has called for countries to come together as one. So they're trying to get, I don't want to say, a single government, but they're trying to unite all nations on one topic or a variety of topics. And that in turn creates, one global governing body, if that makes sense. And it's interesting to note that this is all leading, because when there's crises and it's a global crisis, then everyone comes together. And that's what's important to note with everything that's going on. Now he talks about human rights, peace, dignity for all, equality, justice, solidarity. Like never before, core values are in the crosshairs. Okay? And he says, we face a moment of truth. Now is the time to deliver, to restore trust, to inspire hope. And he does have hope. And he says we need to strengthen global governance. Here it is. Here's the key. We need to focus on the future. We need to renew the social contract. We need to ensure a United Nations fit for a new era. Okay? So they want to get global governance, and that's the word. To unite everyone on the same topics, the same agendas. And you have to pay attention. And he sees the 6 great divides. And here are the clues. Peace, climate, the wealth inequality gap, gender, digital, and divide among generations. And these are topics that they're going to unite the world around. And if you don't believe me, I'm showing you what he's saying. And this is from the United Nations News. And before long, if you doubt anything that I'm saying, just give it time. And before you know it, everything that I've been trying to talk about here, you're going to be like, wow, I remember that. So this is why it's important for us to pay attention and to spread this to other people so that they can be aware. Because this isn't just about health or just about climate. This is about global governance, getting everyone on the same page and under one global I don't know the term, but global governance is the best way to put it. And how do you do that? Create common crises for every nation. Now, I believe that here it says the best way to advance the interests of one's own citizens is by advancing the interests of our common future. Interdependence is the logic of the 21st century, and it is the lodestar of the United Nations. And obviously he ends with like very good words. He said, this is our time, a moment for transformation, to reignite multilateralism, age of possibilities, to restore trust and inspire hope. Let us start right now. So folks, this is an agenda and it's being carried out. If you haven't heard of Agenda 2030, check it out. Look, go on their website. It's a real thing. And it's bringing upon all nations to unite on these common points. I hope this episode has brought you some value. Like and subscribe. Share this video. It's important. I know I'm a small channel, but I'm trying to get the word out there. And the more people can be informed on these topics, the more we'll be aware of what's happening. Folks, this, like I always say, we're at a crossroads at a critical time. It's important to pay attention. This is the Digital World Podcast, and I'll see you in the next episode.